Good morning, everyone. Welcome on back to the channel. I don't know if any of you are anything like me in this regard, but after seeing movies like I Love You Man, the Iron Man movies, and the Spider-Man movies in the MCU, not to mention things like The Mandalorian, my goodness, I have become so interested in everything that Jon Favreau has made. That being said, one of the movies that he is very well known for producing and starring in is this movie called Chef. And in that movie, he makes a sandwich called a Cubano. It's a Cuban pork sandwich. However, if you've seen the movie or perhaps watched him make it on the Chef show, you might have noticed that that is the sandwich that is going to come in incredibly high in calories and not perhaps pack the amount of protein that we would be looking for. So today, I'm going to show you how to make a pretty simple version of a Cubano that will be anabolic, fairly easy to set up, unlike the one that you would have seen in the show, but also pack in all the flavor that you would be looking for. So let's start off by first preparing our pork. Just like we did for the Tasio recipe, we are going to be using pork tenderloin again. And we're going to be using one of the two sections that are included in this bag. Once we have our meat laid out, in order to make it so that we can actually cook it a little bit faster and marinate it for a little bit less time, we are going to cut it up into smaller sections to start off. Just chop off all the extra fat we don't need. Now we've gotten most of those big fat chunks chopped off, especially getting off that silver skin that we had here. So we are going to chop this into small pieces that are going to be the eventual pieces that we put on our sandwich. We're going to chop these pretty small because we want them to not only marinate quickly, but also cook fairly quickly and make it so that, again, our life is as easy as possible for preparing the meat. As you can see, I first chopped it into sections and then into smaller pieces by cutting those sections up. You're going to be looking for between 1 and 1.5 inches long. Also, don't be afraid to chop off any extra fat while you're doing the segmenting. If you see a chunk like this that's just sitting there, you don't need it. And now we'll just check through. Make sure that we don't have pieces that are too big, that are going to be hard for us to eat. We now have our pork tenderloin all chopped up, so it's time for us to put it on the scale because we want to know how much meat we're working with to start, and then we're going to marinate it. Now let's weigh it out. I have the scale here with the Pyrex on top, and I'm just going to throw all of my meat chunks in. And it comes out to 538 grams here, 538.5 grams. So I'll make a note of that so that I know about how much I'm working with in total. Now that our meat is measured out, we have to add our marinade, of course. Now I picked up this mojo marinade at my regular local Safeway. And the reason I'm using this one is because, according to the label at least, it has 0 calories. And I am going to add in 75 milliliters. I'm just going to pour that over the top. Whatever. It's 77. Doesn't really make a difference because, again, it's coming in at 0 calories a serving. So maybe I'm adding 10 calories in total for this whole thing. And I'm not even going to be using all this meat for each sandwich. And I'm just going to mix this up with my hands. Typically, this is done as a roast and you're using a very large piece of meat. Here, because we're using small pieces of meat that we're going to then pan fry, we don't really need to worry as much about giving it that full 12-hour marinating time. So this will be good if it has at least 6 hours. That'll have enough time for the citrusy flavors to soak in. All right, everyone, now that this is set, I'm going to put this into the fridge for at least 6 hours, and then we'll come back and make our sandwiches. Welcome on back. We've let the meat marinate for about 8 hours, which is more than enough time for the flavors of the mojo to get absorbed into the pork. So it's time for us to get the pork cooked, get our sandwich assembled, and to get the sandwich cooked up as well. To make our sandwich, we're first going to need bread, of course. If you can get yourself authentic Cuban bread, then by all means use that. I am using Italian bread because it is what I could get from my grocery store. You will also need mustard, reduced fat Swiss cheese, pickles, I can't believe it's not butter spray, some sort of ham, I'm using smoked, and of course, the meat we prepared earlier. The first step of assembling my sandwich was to take my bread and chop out the middle because it was not only a lot of extra calories, but with this cross section, you would not be able to eat it anyway. And don't worry about these extra bits. I'm actually going to use them in a French toast casserole sort of a thing that I do. So what we have here is about 90 grams worth of bread. So now that our bread is cut, we're going to add our mustard and smear that on. And now our bread is going to wait while we get the rest of the things prepped. Starting with our ham. Using our scale, we're going to measure out 112 grams of our ham and put it into our skillet. And what we're going to do here is make sure that we get the meat nice and warmed up. You probably should use a utensil rather than just using your fingers. Once that's been heated up for a bit, we're going to put that onto the bottom part of our sandwich bread. Then on top of that, we're going to add 1.5 pieces of our reduced fat Swiss cheese. Into our pan, we are going to add 80 grams of our marinated pork. We want to make sure that our pork gets a really good brown, but doesn't get burnt. This is good color, so that's what we're going for. And we just want to get that on all sides. Not only does the browning give more flavor and texture, but it also makes it prettier. You should really smell the mojo marinade coming off of the pork. That's perfect. Nice citrusiness with some spice. Wonderful. And we're just going to cook these exactly like this until they look thoroughly done. Because the pieces of meat here are so small, it would be really challenging for us to use a thermometer accurately. So we have to really just watch it. And once it looks like meat is probably cooked through, we'll throw it onto our sandwich. By the way, I am using a low medium setting on my stove for all of this. On my stove, it's a 3 out of 10. Just so you all know, I'm not using anything really hot here. All right, let's throw this onto our sandwich. So we're just going to add the pork right on top of the cheese we already laid down. Try to make sure that we get some for every bite of sandwich. Once we have our pork done, we're going to add another 1.5 slices of reduced fat Swiss cheese. And we'll finish our sandwich assembly with some pickles. I really like these. They do have a little bit of extra sweetness that comes with some calories, but for me, it's worth it. And don't be cheap with your pickles. Now, our sandwich is just about ready. We can put the hat on it, and press it down, and now it's time for us to move over to our griddle. Now, we happen to have a waffle maker that inverts and becomes a panini press. This is what I'm going to be using instead of a plancha, which is what you're technically supposed to use for a Cubano sandwich. I don't happen to have a plancha. So I'm going to get this heated up. You want it to be at least at about a medium high so that it's really, really nice and hot. To make this work out as easily as we can for ourselves, I'm going to hit the bottom of the griddle here with 7 sprays of the I can't believe it's not butter, and the top of the bread with 7 sprays as well. Those sprays I've actually incorporated into the calories, so that's part of what you see in the nutrition facts. And you'll close down and press. Getting a good press down is really important for a Cuban sandwich. And you're just going to hold it here until you get a nice golden brown crust built up. And here we are. Let's get it onto our cutting board so we can finish this off. Though I might be tempted to eat this off of the cutting board like Remington James.
So uncivilized.
I'm actually just going to cut it on its diagonal and then move it over to a plate to eat from. All right, everyone, so here we are, ready to try out this Anabolic Cubano. So before we even get to digging in, this is what our nutrition facts look like. So it is a bit on the higher calorie end, but look at all that you're getting for it. You're getting freshly made pork, ham, cheese, pickles. It's a win. I don't even have to get started on it, but I'm going to. So cheers, y'all. One bite and you just immediately know exactly why it's a popular sandwich. There are so many different flavors that are just screaming at you from all the different angles. From something as simple as the pickles to the fruity, citrusy nature of the pork. It's so good.
So, is it good?
It's amazing.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed this video. As always, we have a lot more to come. If you want to make sure you're aware of all the great stuff we come up with, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and don't forget to follow on Instagram so you know when I'm posting new content, and you'll get to participate in any polls. In fact, in the comments below, tell me what sort of sandwich you might want to see me make Anabolic next. We've already done Monte Cristos, Sloppy Joes. What else do you want to see? Let me know. And in the meantime, always remember to stay worthy.